Modern Requirements is a requirements management solution. It's cloud-based. It's the optimal solution if you are using Azure DevOps. If you're not, that's okay. You should be considering Azure DevOps as well. What it really does, it helps manage requirements end to end through development. So think of sign-offs when you're working on a project. The hassle of having an Excel sheet or dealing with it through email, whereas this is all built right into the program.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Shihan Fernando. He's the Vice President of Sales at Modern Requirements. Shihan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kelsey, for having me. I've been looking forward to this over the last couple of weeks. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on the show today. So Shihan, why don't you start and tell me a little bit about yourself?
What do you say? A little bit about myself. Well, I am a seasoned salesperson, sales coach. I started my career out in financial services, and it was a great deal of fun. I learned a lot working at Fortune 500s, and most recently switched into research. I had a bit of a soul searching a few years ago where what is it that I truly love to do? And it came down to coaching people and learning. And luckily for me that I was able to find roles, particularly in sales, that I could do just those two things. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's me. From a professional perspective and from a personal perspective, I'm a dad of 3 little girls. I have a beautiful wife named Amy who has given me those 3 girls. So I'm surrounded by the ladies here at home. And we recently went on holiday to the UK where we traveled extremely light. And I actually going to be posting about that on my Instagram. So that's, yeah.
Ooh, that's a good little teaser. That's great.
Yeah.
So, was there a certain time that you found yourself first really interested in sales, or kind of how did that come about?
Great question. So in high school, I was in IB in grade 9 and being a full academic and, coming from a South Asian background, it's doctor or lawyer. Those are the only 2 choices. Mm-hmm. And in the 12th grade, took all the maths, took all the sciences, and it was over Christmas. We were playing Monopoly when my dad actually said, "Really? I don't think medicine would be your calling. You should do something with business." We've played Monopoly my entire life, and that's another whole podcast. We can talk about Monopoly, but that's when I kind of decided business was the way for me to go. And then in university, I started a business with a couple of friends of mine. We were importing wine from Thailand and wholesaling it to restaurants. And I did a little bit of sales there, but at the time I was also working part-time in sales, selling suits at the end of high school and university. And I just love the puzzle of figuring out what people needed, understanding that, and then, finding problem solving it and getting them what they need and them having a great experience. So that's kind of the genesis. It's kind of happy accident, like most salespeople. And then from there it became a career.
That's really interesting. So you've kind of taken, those experiences, your expertise in sales and everything, and turned that into a career for yourself now, working with sales coaching. Kind of talk to me a little bit about, sales coaching in your role.
Well, I'll say early days. I had a really great sales coach when I was selling suits at Moore's. And from there, I don't know if I really had a very good coach up until my time at Sun Life. And I had a really great sales coach, and he was good with respect to the mechanics of it all. But one of the things that I always found myself that I love to do is actually connect with people. Mm-hmm. And so I think with my natural skills and being around people, but then also having the mechanics I learned from Stephen McDonald, I'll give him a shout out. Those things paired together, I really felt that was my calling. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I evolved. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how I kind of evolved into it.
Yeah.
And that's really what gets me excited to have my feet hit the ground in the morning.
That's fantastic. So when you start working, with someone working with someone in sales, kind of in that sales coaching role, what are kind of the first things that you do to work with somebody?
Number one is building trust, because at the end of the day, you can only coach someone if they know that you love them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people click and they're in it for the right reasons. They want to be there, and sometimes folks don't want to be there. And you get a sense of that kind of early days where they're just kind of trying to collect a paycheck and do something else that they're more passionate about. Mm-hmm. But when folks are passionate about what they're doing, they really want to be there. And my goal first is try to establish some sort of baseline relationship so that at the end of the day, whether they're successful or they fail, which there's tons of failure in sales, they'll know that I'm in their corner. That's important. Mm-hmm. And really, I think having a positive mindset and mirroring that positive mindset is something very important for, a salesperson and also for the sales coach to mirror. And then there's success. So first thing is establishing some sort of baseline relationship that the relationship will rest on. And then from there, it's really mentoring. If you can't do it, what are you coaching? So you got to kind of show people how to do it. Yeah. And then the next step is really to take a step back and let them run with it and challenge them continually. I think those steps, relationship and mentoring, where you gain the further trust professionally. And then the last step, as in, continue to challenge folks, has been my formula in helping people reach, success in their roles as salespeople.
And I think too, there's something to be said of taking that same flow of, building that trust and the process that you just outlined. The same thing as you do it with coaching for sales. That's the same, formula that people who are in sales should also do too.
100%. Exactly. You want to build some sort of relationship. I mean, in sales, you're going to reach out to people for, a commercial reason, right? Mm-hmm. And people like doing business with other real people. If it's transactional and it's a transactional type sale, great. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and move forward. But the reality of it is when you're dealing with, higher ticket items or B2B, there is a relationship element of it. And so, that should be the starting point. Always. Also, one thing I want to point out, though, is that it's not always blue skies and green grass. They're, winners like winners. And, when there's dead weight on teams, those tough decisions need to be made. And I've been able to separate myself from those from an emotional perspective to say, if they got to go, they got to go. And having been on many high performing teams, you can see that, low performers really drag down the overall morale of the team. So that's part of it too.
That's really interesting. And like you said, it's not always green, like blue skies and rainbows. That a lot of the sales coaching, I imagine, comes in, and it's during those darker times, when things aren't clicking, when things aren't flowing, when sales aren't being done. So I imagine too, that's got to be, trust is a huge part. Walking into an organization or walking into, a sales team where things aren't going great, but trying to find a way to spin that is probably crucial.
Yeah. And, one of the examples I'd like to use is that, what is a Hall of Fame baseball player's batting average? Between 300 to 400, right? Maybe even higher now. When you really think of what that means is that they're striking out or getting out 6 out of 10 times. And, salespeople got to understand that, sales is generally a game of there is going to be failure. You're going to be able to weather that storm and just know that you're continuing to tweak your process. Don't change your swing at every at bat. It's about incremental improvements over time. And
kind of in your experience, what are some of the common just incremental changes that you kind of encourage people to make through that process?
Well, I'm going to go back to mechanics as in eliminating ums and ahs. Toastmasters is great for all salespeople in being able to curate how they speak, how they articulate, how they bite their words and spit them out. Taking pause when they're thinking as opposed to umming and ahhing, right? So I think fundamentals, those and pace, up speaking at the end of sentences shows lack of confidence. So, there's mechanical things that can be improved on early. And I think once those things are resolved, then it's a matter of truly being curious as a salesperson. If you're not digging into pain and not understanding what's really relevant or important to who you're dealing with, and even from a coaching perspective, same idea. If you're not really figuring out what is it really making this person tick, nothing else is built on faulty foundation. So foundationally, you should be, articulate, be able to speak clearly, at the same time, be curious so to extract where we potentially can help, whatever solution you're trying to pitch.
That's a great little tidbit to take away. So, you're taking all of these skills and kind of transferring them into your new role as vice president at Modern Requirements. Talk to me a little bit more about, what Modern Requirements does.
So Modern Requirements is a requirements management solution. It's cloud-based. It's the optimal solution if you are using Azure DevOps If you're not, that's okay. You should be considering Azure DevOps as well. What it really does, it helps manage requirements end to end through development. So think of sign-offs when you're working on a project. The hassle of having an Excel sheet or dealing with it through email. Whereas this is all built right into the program. Also, from a requirements management perspective, not just sign-offs, but what are the appropriate test cases that need to happen? This is all going to happen within it on a single source of truth because it's built on the Azure DevOps platform. I'm selling a little bit here, but it's all in real-time information. So ultimately, it's bi-directionally as communication. So if you're developing and you have challenges on making a change, what does the impact that change, or where sign off, or how are we tracking commentary from stakeholders? All of these mechanical complexities are eliminated, making your development process so much more streamlined. And that's what really makes it special. And that's the reason why I've decided to move on from Infotech Research Group, which is a great place to work, great human beings, very interesting product and solutions in terms of advisory. But having watched what Modern Requirements, how well they're doing, by the way, spoiler alert, they're actually going to be ranked number 1 in the requirements management data quadrant that's coming out shortly. Yeah, I just got news of that yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're going to be ranked number 1. And I know that, though, having worked with Asif Sharif and Bob Savelson, the executive team over at Modern Requirements over the course of last year, I thought, this is going to be a great part of my journey. To help them to continue to grow. They've been doing well for the last several years. I'm plugging again, but I'm really excited to be part of that journey. And it was very difficult to leave Infotech Research Group Software Reviews. Like I said, many of my favorite salespeople from Sun Life followed me to Software Reviews. They're great human beings. So if you have a chance to work with them, I definitely would recommend that. That being said, when it comes down to it, you got to do what's best for yourself and your family. And so that's what brought me to this decision to move to Modern Requirements.
That's great. That's great. And I congratulations on the new role and that transition. I think that's, I'm excited to follow you through this new role. So, talking about sales, you're still going to be in sales. Do you hear a lot of common misconceptions, whether it be, about sales in general, sales as a whole, anything that you hear often that you would want to kind of debunk while you've got the opportunity?
That's a great question. It's funny, people who first enter into sales, they're not excited to say they're in sales, right? It seems like, oh, car salesman, right? It's like that. It's that feeling.
Yeah.
But I think as people are more proficient in the role and they truly understand that really what you're trying to do is solution a problem that someone may not know they really have just yet, right? And so think of sales as architecting a relationship between two organizations. And so the stigma of, the car salesman, right, out the window, and it focuses on the right thing, which is what is the pain? What is the issues that we're trying to resolve here? And is there a way we can help? And if not, be brave, walk away, right? Because honesty is always going to be the best policy in sales. Whereas if you think of the traditional car salesman or death of a salesman, or those book we read in high school and scared us all off from sales originally, is you're not pushing things. If you're pushing product, you're not a very good salesperson, because if you sell ice to someone who lives in the Arctic, they're probably never going to buy from you again when they realize they got fleeced. Right. So it's better to sell them a heater, sell them, warm clothing, right? Sell them water purification, something that they can genuinely use, and be a repeat client.
That's great. No. And I think you raise a really important point too, that, sales does sometimes have a bit of a stigma behind it. But a lot of the times too, it's not, salespeople get, like you said, a bad rep for pushing things that maybe people don't necessarily need. But when you believe in a product and you believe in kind of what the service that you offer, it makes it's not as salesy, like you said. It's just you're assisting, a company in bettering their own, program, solution, product.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the better you have an understanding of all the intricacies of your own product, the better would be able to articulate how it would solve the problems that you're hearing. And if you don't quite have a good understanding of what that problem is, then level 2 and level 3 questions would be necessary. Then that way, you can gain some alignment on how your solution, and this is the sales part, can solve that problem in a cost-effective way or revenue-generating way. So, yeah, to your point, it's really kind of architecting that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So pivoting a little bit, kind of taking a look at more of the modern market, ChatGPT-4 is kind of everywhere. It's been a disruptor in the space. Talk to me about kind of from your perspective and your experience, what impact ChatGPT-4 is currently having and may have in the future on sales and marketing.
Hey, great question. I recently have become wildly addicted to GPT-4. I tried ChatGPT, thought, wow, what's the better version of this? And this page, tried it. And I'm seeing a lot now on my feed. My algorithm is feeding me all these news articles and videos about how it's going to eliminate jobs and it's going to be terrifying. And yeah, I think there's a lot of grunt work that will be replaced by GPT-4 and ChatGPT and everything OpenAI is doing. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to sales, if you take a look at what's going on right now in terms of people's sentiments around AI, with marketing and sales, is that it's kind of negative. People don't trust it yet, right? And I think human beings are perfectly imperfect. And there is something to be said about building a relationship with a human. So I think that even though GPT-4 is out there, it's going to really help us move things more efficiently forward. But when it comes down to building relationships, meaningful ones, and giving feedback and growing, our solution and growing that relationship and helping them get value from our solution, I think human beings are not going to be replaced from a sales perspective. 5 years from now, maybe this podcast is not going to age well. Who knows? I'm a bit of a humanist in that respect. But I think when it comes down to brass tacks, ChatGPT and all this AI is going to be a great enabler. However, when it comes down to it, I think there's going to be very much a human element that's going to keep things real. Like, for example, last thought on this, there will come a time, in my opinion, that when you get marketing emails, and it reads like a perfectly crafted marketing email versus something a little more human, right? I think that's going to get obvious. And there's going to be more value in the email that's written by a person. Quick example, you can go out and buy a bookshelf, right? For, let's say, $100. And then you can go to IKEA and buy the same bookshelf for $80. But then you spend 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon building it, right? And now if you're going to go sell that bookcase, you're probably not going to want to sell it for $100 or $80. You're probably going to want $120 for it because of the love and effort you put into it, right? Like, just because there's more value to it. So I feel the same way in sales, is that when there's a human involvement and there's that human fingerprints on it, on that relationship, there's going to be value in that. And I think, in a nutshell, it's a great enabler. I don't think it'll get rid of sales though.
So how do you use it as a tool then? Because it sounds like, to kind of to be able to stay on top of the times, you've been using it as a tool. Talk to me about how do you use it to be efficient in your work?
Well, to wireframe a message. So for example, I was going to write my farewell note to Infotech, and I said, write a heartfelt farewell. And, from an introduction, a conclusion, the gratitude, all of those elements were within it, but it rang hollow. So I used it as a wireframe, and I personalized it extensively. So that it was a message from anyone who knows the way I speak and the way what I love. They'd read like, Shihan definitely wrote this. However, the mechanics and the nitty gritty first draft of it was eliminated. And for me, that was a huge time saving because now I can just customize and personalize something that is already well crafted. So that's how I've been using it. And I'm sure from a marketing messaging perspective, they're going to do the same.
Yeah, no. And it sounds too kind of from that salespeople can also do the same thing with their follow-ups and being able to use ChatGPT-4 as a tool rather than, as inhibitor to work. Yeah,
it's not going to eliminate work. It'll help you get your first drafts out the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Shihan, this has been a great conversation. As we start to wrap up, where can people go to learn more, kind of about you as a person, as a coach, about modern requirements? Where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, there's two places. I'm actually using a startup called arc.link. It's for individual folks who want to have a web presence. They are able to use arc.link and it walks them through how to build a web page. So I'm using that right now for myself. So shihanfernando.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn at Shihan Fernando. There's only one. I'm based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So those would be the three best places to look for more about me.
That's fantastic. So, Shihan, like I said, as we wrap up this conversation, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, either about sales, about modern requirements, life in general, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Bet on yourself. But before you do, take some time to truly understand who you are, what makes you tick, what gets you excited, and what you're really good at. Mm-hmm. And if you steer into those things, then I'd say go all in and bet on yourself, because you sleep better at night. And, last thought, while I was in financial services, though, it was a great career, it was stable, great organization, I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. And that happiness started to spill into the rest of my life. And I realized I got to make a change. And I took some time to think about what is it I wanted to do. And when I made that change and bet on myself and ran into that, it enriched my life, but also the life of my children, my family, and my friends who are closest to me. So that's the last thought. And when it comes to sales, if you're in it because you're looking for a paycheck only, then I don't know if you have sustainability there. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And if you are a curious individual and you want to learn more about people and build relationships, then sales is a great place to consider if you're not already in it.
That's fantastic. Well, Shihan, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you breaking down all things sales, kind of giving us a look into your own personal life, and, just being on Business Ninjas today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Kelsey. I look forward to actually seeing this when it's live.
Yeah, me too. Take care.
Take care.